Good afternoon. Welcome to those who are watching on the Zoom link. It is 1:30. I will call this regular meeting of Council of the Municipality of Jasper to order for July 19th, 2022. Just as an opening comment, July 19th, 2001, the Municipality of Jasper residents were asked to vote on a question. That question was, are you in favor of the establishment of municipal government in the town of Jasper? And overwhelmingly, the residents of this town said, yes, indeed, they were in favor of the establishment of local government in Jasper. Consequently, each of us here today has the honor and the privilege of continuing to represent the residents of Jasper in their dealings with other level of government and for local issues. So it's a significant date, followed of course by tomorrow being the anniversary of the Order of Council, which actually established the municipality. But the citizens spoke 21 years ago today, resoundingly in favor of the establishment of local government in Jasper. And auspiciously, we have with us today a guest, and an unusual guest in that he's not here on any particular issue, but interested sort of generally in the conduct of municipal government in the town of Jasper. And visiting with us today is Ron Nyland, Mayor of the community of Mount Airy in North Carolina. So welcome, Mayor Nyland. Very pleased to have you here. In previous discussions, you spoke about an opportunity at your council to address council, and perhaps later in the meeting I can invite you to do that if you wish to say anything. But welcome. We're very pleased to have you here. Councillors, you have before you today's proposed agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or other changes to be made to the agenda? Councillor Hall.
Was on. Thank you. I'll just use Councillor DeMota's mic. Thank you, Mayor Island. I would like to make a motion to amend the agenda by adding an in-camera item 11.1 and moving agenda item 6.5, which is our council strategic priorities, to that new agenda item.
Thank you for that. Councillor Hall, are there any other changes to be made to the agenda? Take it then I have a motion which I will attribute to Councillor Hall to approve the agenda for today's meeting, subject to the addition of agenda item 11.1, which shall be an in-camera discussion, and moving what is now agenda item 6.5 to 11.1. Any debate on that? All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. We have an agenda for the day. We have 3 sets of minutes for approval today, beginning with the Legislative Committee minutes from July 5th, 2022. Any errors, omissions, or corrections required to be made to those minutes? Seeing none, might I have a motion, please, to approve those minutes as circulated? Councillor Kelleher-Empey, thank you. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. We also have minutes of the regular meeting of July 5th, 2022 attached. Are there any errors, omissions, or corrections required to be made to those minutes? If not, I have a motion from Councillor Waxer to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of July 5th, 2022 as circulated. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. And finally, we have minutes from the Committee of the Whole meeting of July 12th. Are there any errors, omissions, or corrections required to be made to those minutes? If not, may I have a motion, please? Councillor DeMota, thank you. A motion to approve the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting of July 12th, 2022 as circulated. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. Is there any business arising from any of those minutes or other minutes? Councillor Demota.
Although I wasn't here, I just wanted to thank council for appointing me to be on the commercial use of public space task force. It means a lot to me, and I hope that my experience and my knowledge of the industry out there, as well as my relationships with a lot of the businesses involved, will be helpful to the forward development of what comes out of it. So I'm very grateful, and I thank in my absence for appointing.
Thank you, Councillor Demota. If there is no business arising, we will dispose of that item on the agenda. And agenda item 5 is there for information. There is nothing to arise there, so we can move to agenda item 6, request for decision, and begin with agenda item 6.1, Activity Center Renovation Construction Management RFP. Mr. Given, did you wish to speak to that?
Sure, certainly, Your Worship. As Council aware, this was at the Committee of the Whole last week, and the recommendation from committee is that Council award the RFP for the Activity Center Renovation Construction Manager to Carlson Construction with fees as follows: pre-construction services in the amount of $15,000 in addition to the cost of construction, and construction management fees, staffing, and general requirements to be included in the total cost of construction budget as previously approved by Council. And speaking of this, Your Worship, Council and the committee are aware that the overall project budget for the renovation was approved in April of this year at just over $14 million. The construction manager is the final portion of our team in proceeding with this major project. This is in addition to the prime consultant, or essentially our architect, and our project manager, who we previously brought on. The construction manager's role will be to be a part of that team and provide ongoing cost estimates as the project is developed, to forecast on escalations, give recommendations with respect to phasing, provide constructability reviews, and provide comment to the prime consultant, the architect, with respect to product selection or alternate designs that can favorably impact the cost of construction. In addition, the construction manager will be responsible for the safety of the site on an ongoing basis, as well as the planning and coordination with municipal staff to ensure the operation of the facility, as we expect it to continue to host the community while the renovations are underway. There are some alternatives. Of course, we could proceed without a construction manager. Administration is not recommending this alternative, as it would reduce our ability to have that ongoing dialogue between the people who will be building the project and the designers. And we see that there's some risk with respect to scope creep and design creep. Also, proceeding without a construction manager could delay the project, as could reissuing for a new RFP to seek a new construction manager submission or additional submissions. Additionally, resubmitting, requesting a new request for proposals out into the market could also damage the reputation of the municipality with the appearance of bid shopping and, as I mentioned before, the impacts of the schedule. So administration is confident that Carlson Construction has a history of developing similar projects. We are aware that they are also doing private work in the Jasper region, and so they're familiar with working with Parks Canada, and for all those reasons, administration is comfortable with the recommendation that we took forward to committee and the committee has forwarded to council here today.
Thank you, Mr. Given. Any questions from councillors with respect to the matter directed to administration? Councillor Demota.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I don't think I have any questions. I appreciate the diligence that's and the approach on this, just from experience in the design and build this building in particular, and some of the struggles that we went through. So, you know, I appreciate that we're going through a different level of scrutiny and having someone here on the project to observe and communicate. And I think communication is the most important thing, and that person should be able to do that on many levels. And if we have an experienced developer then that gives me a little bit more comfort at night. Thank you.
Other questions from councillors? Mr. Given, I think I raised this issue a week ago when we discussed this matter in committee of the whole. I appreciate your opening comments. You addressed scope creep and project creep, and I also am concerned about cost creep. So can you just explain again who manages the manager? Is this a position that reports to you specifically or to whom?
Your Worship, the entire project team, after we get into the design and construction phase, is going to be working through Director Reed for community development. And ultimately, he and I will be working closely together on the oversight. But the project team is assembled is our prime consultant, GDC Architecture. We're doing the design, and they have a number of the sub-trades with respect to design engineers and electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, and the like. We have also engaged WSP for a purely project management basis. And so they really are there to convene, track project risks, and bring them to the attention to myself and Mr. Reed as the project owner. So they really are the owner's rep. And the construction manager is the third part of that puzzle, and will be working alongside the prime consultants, both of them working through WSP, and Director Reed and myself provide oversight to that entire process. And Director Reed will be the front end, providing that day-to-day oversight.
Thank you for that. I just recognize again a theoretical, but an inherent issue with respect to a contract based on cost. As councillors, we have an interest in maintaining costs as close as we can to the budget. And so there is that, not casting aspersions on anybody, but there is that need for oversight. But I appreciate your response, and there are several layers of oversight. So I'm comforted by that. Thank you. Councillor Melnick.
Thank you, Your Worship. Last week, there was a question about the status of the ice plant during the discussion. And Mr. Given, you had indicated you provide a brief update, but for the public record, I'd like to see that made public, which was provided to council.
Sure. Thanks very much. Through Your Worship, Director Reed provided that update, so I'll pass it over to him to share it publicly with council as well.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and Councillor, through to Councillor Melnick. Let me just pull that up so I get the exact information correct. I apologize for the delay.
I appreciate the update and take your time, because I think it is important that the public is fully aware of the projects that are ongoing here in the community.
Thank you very much for your patience, Your Worship and Council. So the ice plant project update dated the 18th of July is that the power provision relocation discussions are ongoing with ATCO. A little more detail on that. The two projects we're working both require an increase in power. And so the discussion of whether those should be separate power increases or one larger power increase together as a project. So that's some of the discussions that we mean by provision relocation. The building permit has been submitted and is in process with Parks Canada. Construction to begin as soon as that permit is released. The contractor is ready to go. The schedule is on track for ice plant startup in the fall. And perhaps to reassure both council and the public, the ice plant, we are currently able to start at any moment with the old ice plant. So there will be no impact to the residents as far as the ice schedule, regardless of whether or not there are delays to this ice plant, the new ice plant project. Now, our impression, our plan is to have the new ice plant make the new ice this year. That's the plan, and that's what we're on schedule for. And if there are any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you for that, Director Reed. Councillor Melnick, you're content?
Content and appreciate it. And for the benefit of our guests, making ice for hockey is an important part of what we do here.
I was wondering what a nice plant it was.
Councillor Demota.
Well, obviously, our visitor is not a fan of the Carolina Hurricanes, but I'm a fan, so that's okay. Mr. Reed, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Reed, if I may, is it almost as simple when that ice plant gets built, if there is a startup with the old one, that it's as easy as a flip of a switch to go to the new one, or is there could be some delays?
From a layperson point of view, it's as easy as a switch, rather a flick of a switch. It'd be more a few switches and a few valves. But the current setup and the work that was done previously on the ice surface and the piping work would allow exactly that. We have one plant over here doing the work. We turn that off, turn this one on, close these valves, and open the new ones. Probably in the opposite order, just to prevent any damage. But your question is valid and is accurate. It is that is the last and most simple part of this project. Yes.
I appreciate allowing that question, and I think that's what we were sold on, and I wanted to hear if that was still the case. So I think that's great to hear. Appreciate it.
Councillor Keller-Hran.
You, Mayor Ireland, if I'm allowed to ask this question, just talking about the arena, and I know that once we put in the new boards and the new glass, that there was some deficiencies and that it was gone back to the manufacturer. I was wondering, is all that completed, just for curiosity's sake?
Your Worship, through the Councillor Keller-Hran, that work is not yet completed. So we are in what you would call the negotiations for who's responsible for what part of the warranty period. So that work is ongoing, and the contractor has attempted to come twice, and a variety of reasons have stopped them from coming on their end. We're open that obviously the surface is ready for them as soon as they are able to schedule it. Again, the intention that work will be done well before we make ice.
Thank you for that, Mr. Reed.
Thank you, Councillor Keller-Hran. Of course, you're entitled. Any other questions of administration regarding the Activity Center Renovation Construction Manager, RFP? There is a recommendation from committee. Councillor Melnick, are you prepared to make the motion?
I am prepared to make the motion that council award the RFP for the Activity Center Renovation Construction Manager to Carlson Construction with fees as follows. Pre-construction services of $15,000 in addition to the cost of construction, and construction CM fee, staffing and general requirement to be included in the total cost of construction budget previously approved by council.
Thank you for that motion, Councillor Melnick. Is there any debate? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. Thank you, Mr. Given, for that, and Mr. Reed. That takes us to agenda item 6.2, Food Security Working Group. Again, Mr. Given, there is a committee recommendation, but do you want to reintroduce the topic?
There is a committee recommendation, Your Worship, and Director Reed and his team have been working on this. So if you will handle the update for council, I believe that there were some minor updates from the terms of reference from the committee last week, and Director Reed can speak to that.
Thank you very much, CEO, giving Your Worship through council. So indeed, at committee, council asked some very good questions, and we believe we've captured those elements in the amended terms of reference. And you will note, for example, that any subject matter experts are not on the committee. They are adjuncts to the committee. You may also see that the issues around who can join the committee and how are clarified. But I believe we covered everything that council requested, and that committee is ready to jump into service as soon as council should approve it if it meets your requirements.
Thank you, Mr. Reid. Questions for administration from councillors? Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Ireland. My question to you, Director Reid, is it a problem there's 4 members of the group with 4 votes? Would there be what would happen in case of a tie?
It certainly mathematically could be a challenge. We do foresee that perhaps that committee will see other members that may apply, but also that committee will be administered by staff administration. And so the committee will be supported in consensus building. And so it's not an impediment that we're administratively concerned about. But, you know, should council wish to make another amendment, we could entertain changing that.
If I may, just picking up on the same issue raised by Councillor Hall, there is a later requirement, Article 3 of the proposed terms of reference, quorum, which indicates quorum is half of the membership, which means 2 people, which again, I think could be problematic, tempered by what you said just about the issue of guidance to consensus. But I wonder in the circumstances as well whether we might consider making it a group of 5 and quorum being a majority, so that you have at least 3 people engaged in decision making, not 2. And on the same topic, I am unclear what it means that a member of the committee is the Jasper Food Recovery Program. Is there a separate Jasper Food Recovery group or association? I mean, a program is different than a group, and so I don't know who you'll look to appoint a member of the food security task force or working group when you look to a program. So perhaps you could explain that to me.
So, Your Worship, through the council, so absolutely, I will speak to the first. You could create 5 members easily by putting 2 councils on, if you wish to make that happen. Just a suggestion, friendly suggestion. And the second part about quorum being then a majority, we could make that amendment, and you know, that's a very straightforward administrative amendment that you could approve with that amendment today, if you so wish. CEO Gibbon has highlighted also that this committee really only makes recommendations, and so their ability to do anything legislative is 0. So therein lies the protection, I suppose, that a smaller committee with smaller numbers doesn't really affect anything in the way that the councillor who may be appointed would be representing your interests and thereby the interests of the broader community. I think, or administration would suggest that this committee, time is more important than perhaps getting every detail correct. That's where we've come to. However, of course, it's always up to the will of council.
Thank you for that. Any other questions, Councillor Demota?
I think as far as the working group goes, I had similar concerns. However, if there's confidence from Mr. Reid that this can go forward, I think that if there was a recommendation to come forward, and it's probably not good to put in what if scenarios, but if 2 people were for something, 2 people were against, how do you make a recommendation to council? I guess you could say half of the group was in favor and half of the group wasn't, and then council makes a decision. And I'm comfortable with doing that. So if Mr. Reid is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Demota. Anything else? As chair, I am not in a position to make a motion without vacating the chair, but I'll throw it out there and see whether anybody else is interested in making a motion before I conscript Councillor Melnick to the chair. But even leaving it at 4, and I appreciate the reasoning that you have tendered, Mr. Reid, but even leaving it at 4, my view is that quorum should still be a majority. Well, you're putting up 5, are you saying, with 2 councillors? But if the group is still 4, I can understand that might work. But a committee of 2, I just find difficult. And so if that one clause, the quorum, was to change to quorum is a majority, that means there would have to be 3. It's 75%, and maybe that's not realistic, but it's a short-term thing. There seems to be lots of enthusiasm for it. I'm fairly confident that you will get at least 3 and probably 4 plus some staff members for the 3 meetings that I think are contemplated. But I would still prefer if a councillor is interested in making a motion to approve the draft terms of reference subject to that one amendment. I would be more in favor of that. Go ahead, Mr. Reid.
Thank you, Your Worship. To speak directly to that, so that amendment is very easy for us to include, and you could vote on that amended motion today.
Yes.
Or terms of reference today. The second part, I apologize. I realized I didn't fully answer your question. You asked about the Jasper Food Recovery Program, and that Jasper Food Recovery Program is run by volunteers. And so without knowing exactly what their societal status is, we still believe that there is a status to that group for the work they are performing that is valid at this meeting. And so that one more correctly would have been written representative from the Jasper Food Program. And so I apologize for not catching that originally. I think now that's why I had put my hand up. I wasn't trying to say 5. I just wanted to say I slipped that answer. Or slipped giving you that.
Thank you for that. Councillor Melnick.
I realized looking at the draft terms of reference, and we all missed it last committee of the whole, we have 2 item 3s. And that's just a simple error to be able to which we all missed, to be able to change quorum to item 4 and subsequent numbering. Since we are going to be making, it looks like, an adjustment to the draft terms of reference.
We only have 2 number 3s. Couldn't we just make a 3rd? All right, well, there are potentially then 2 amendments. If anybody wishes to make a motion, Councillor Waxer.
I think I bought one of the amendments. I might need help with the second, but that council approved the draft terms of reference. That council approved the draft terms of reference for a food security working group, subject to the amendment of changing the required quorum to 75%. And
subject to renumbering.
Subject to the appropriate renumbering.
Thank you for that, Councillor Waxer. Any debate on the motion? If not, I will call the question. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. And Mr. Reid, if this is yours, or perhaps Ms. Riddell brought the RFD forward, and because I have commented in the past on the addition of strategic relevance in the request for decision, I compliment you and Mr. Riddell in particular. I think that nails it exactly based on the developing strategic priorities of council, community health, and relationships in both those factors. That's exactly what I hope to see when requests come forward. It ties this request directly and logically to our developing strategic priorities, and that's great to see. So thank you, and please pass that along to Mr. Will. That takes us to agenda item 6.3, public transportation system RFP award. Again, Mr. Gibbon.
Sure. Thank you very much, Your Worship. So we again have a recommendation from committee last week, and that is that council award the public transportation feasibility study to WSP, the amount of $50,650, $50,650 exclusive of GSC, and the required municipal contribution refunded through the existing approved operating budget.
Thank you. Councillor Demoto, you were trying to get my attention as a point of order?
Yes, sir. Were we intending on appointing a councillor to that working group? Apologize.
I did. We can call a return to the orders of the day. I did overlook that. Thank you very much. So I will just hold agenda item 6.3 in abeyance and go back to 6.2. You are absolutely correct that committee recommended that council appoint a member of council to the food security working group. It is different than our normal program where the mayor nominates and council appoints. So we missed that. So I look for a volunteer or a voluntold. Councillor Waxer, you're volunteering?
I'm volunteering.
Is anyone else volunteering?
No, but I support that nomination. I was going to nominate.
So perhaps then you could make a motion.
I will make a motion that council appoint Councillor Waxer as a member of council to the food security working group.
Thank you for that motion, Councillor DeMota. Any debate? I will call the question. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. And thank you, Councillor DeMota, for bringing us back to that. I will now return to agenda item 6.3. Mr. Gibbon, you've given the introduction again. So we should be good with that with respect to the request for decision awarding the transportation feasibility study to WSP. Any further questions of council for Mr. Gibbon or administration generally? Councillor Waxer.
Not so much a question, but just a comment that I think this is a very important study, and that through attending a variety of community conversations, one thing that came through very clearly was the need for transportation. And one pressing issue was that children who are residing at Jasper Park Lodge are in dire need of public transportation to get to and from school, which is possibly really the school board's responsibility. However, additionally, there's lots of concern about those children being able to attend extracurricular activities and being involved in community life. And there are many families that either don't have a vehicle or don't have the flexibility in their work schedule to be able to carry children back and forth. So I just wanted to go on record that I'm very enthusiastic about this study.
Thank you, Councillor Waxer. Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Island. I too echo Councillor Waxer's statements. There's between 30 and 40 school-age children that live at the Jasper Park Lodge, and yes, it is a school board thing, but they do provide a nominal fee per child per day. But again, echoing Councillor Waxer's statements, not all parents have that flexibility. Not all parents have vehicles. It just leaves, it's not accessible for everybody. So I think this public transportation study is great. And just again, I wanted to go on record to. I think that we need to, if somehow that can be talked about or just in there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Again, there is a recommendation from committee. Is there a councillor prepared to make a motion? Councillor Waxer.
I'll go directly to the mic this time. That council award the public transportation feasibility study to WSP in the amount of $50,650 exclusive of GST, and that the required municipal contribution be funded through the existing approved operating budget.
Thank you for that motion, Councillor Waxer. Is there any debate? I will call the question. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. Thank you all for that. Which takes us to agenda item 6.4, procedural bylaw number 190, agenda structure. Mr. Given.
Sure. Thanks very much, Your Worship. This recommendation comes from the Legislative Committee and through the Council Committee of the Whole. So Council is likely well aware of it, that the procedure bylaw actually prescribes the format of our council agendas and therefore council meetings. The Legislative Committee has been reviewing the procedure bylaw to look for opportunities to improve process or flow, and will ultimately make some additional recommendations over the course of this year. The bylaw allows council by motion to suspend any portion of the procedure bylaw, and that's what the committee is recommending here, is that we use the provision, the authority granted under section 3.4 of the bylaw to suspend section 1.3 of Schedule 2. And 1.3 of Schedule 2 is what prescribes the format of council agendas. The committee has seen an opportunity to revise and try some different formats that might offer improvements in the flow of council meetings and the engagement of the public in council meetings. And the intent here is that council enable testing some different approaches over the course of 2022 by suspending that requirement to follow section 1.3 and the layout that it prescribes specifically. So the recommendation from committee is that council approve the suspension of item of section 1.3 in Schedule 2 of the procedure bylaw until December 31st, 2022, pursuant to section 3.4 of the bylaw, which is the section that gives you the authority to suspend some other portion of the bylaw.
Thank you, Mr. Given. Again, this is a recommendation coming forward from the Legislative Committee. Councillor Moore.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Mayor, and Councillor Hall for carrying the most of the work on this. I definitely appreciate the fact that a lot of thought has gone into the restructuring of this, and I'd like to thank administration for the work to get us here today. And I like how this is somewhat open-ended for us to kind of work with as we move along, and it gives us a chance to test drive certain processes where in the past it was just, we pretty much test drove the thought on a lot of things. And I think we'll come up with a better product. And this is a great way to come about going forward with this. So I think it's going to be helpful for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions to raise with administration or the Legislative Committee? I would look to Councillor Hall probably for the motion.
Thank you, Mayor Ireland. I would make a motion that council approve the suspension of item section 1.3 in Schedule 2 of the Procedure Bylaw 190 until December 31st, 2022, pursuant to section 3.4 of the bylaw.
Thank you for that. Any debate? I will call the question. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. And just for the benefit of our guests, this potentially presents the opportunity for us to do what you do and more direct engagement with citizens, depending on how our agenda, how the test drive of our new agenda program works. But it would perhaps be more familiar when you come back to visit us again next year. That takes care of agenda item 6.4. 6.5 we have moved to later in the agenda. which takes us then to agenda item 6.6, which is a request for transfer of land use planning and development jurisdiction to the municipality. And Mr. Gibbon, I will turn to you to introduce.
Yes, Your Worship, and Council will note that this is a little bit different than our established process of late. This has not gone through committee of the whole, and so you'll see that this is not a committee recommendation, rather it's an administrative recommendation. And it's coming directly to the Council just as a matter of timeliness and a part of the ongoing discussion between the municipality and Parks Canada. So as Council and the community are well aware, the municipality of Jasper does not have planning and development authority. When the municipality was incorporated, those authorities and powers were retained by Parks Canada. As far back as the 2011 Jasper Community Sustainability Plan, which was co-adopted by Parks Canada and the municipality, there were action items related to discussing this eventual transfer of authority. In that 2011 plan, there is a goal that specifically states that the municipality and Parks Canada will review the agreement for the establishment of local government in the town of Jasper. And where parties are in agreement with respect to desired change, Parks Canada will recommend to the minister that the agreement be amended accordingly, including as required legislative change to increase the role of the municipality respecting land use and planning and development. And Council will also know that as recently as June of last year, Council has provided formal written input to Parks Canada through their draft Jasper National Park Management Plan. At that time, Council asked that a goal be added to the plan that would have stated that Parks Canada and the municipality of Jasper would work towards transitioning land use planning and development authorities within the town site to the municipality. Unfortunately, that request was deemed to be outside the scope of the management plan document and wasn't included. Since that time, over the last year, Council has been engaged in advocacy at the federal level, at both the political and administrative levels. And as a result of that sustained advocacy over the last year, Council was able to secure a meeting with Parks Canada VP of Operations, Andrew Campbell. And at that time, it was agreed that the municipality and Parks would begin the process of reviewing the agreement for the establishment of local government. Since that time, the municipal administration has met with Parks Canada officials on 2 occasions. As a part of this ongoing process of reviewing the agreement, there was a request from Parks that the municipality formalize its request. And so that's what the recommendation here is today, that Council, via motion at the Council table, formalize the request, basically very specifically and via a motion of Council that's voted on and adopted, the Council requests that land use planning and development approval powers be transferred to the municipality. And then additionally, there's a recommendation there that Council authorize the mayor to formalize that request by correspondence to Parks Canada representatives and federal ministers as appropriate. So that's the 2 recommendations. That's the reason that the recommendations are here, and Council's support or moving those recommendations, although maybe seemingly redundant, since I think it's a well understood desire of the municipality to secure these authorities. It is a desired step in the process. And I think a clear public demonstration that the municipality has formally gone on record saying that they wish to attain these authorities will help enable our ongoing review process that we're currently engaged in.
Thank you for that, Mr. Gibbon. Any questions of administration with respect to the request for decision? I just want to reiterate that although it does seem redundant, if Parks Canada sees a need to formalize the request, we've made it enough times, we could certainly make it one more time in writing to the minister and the appropriate Parks Canada individuals. It doesn't change our position or our direction at all. It simply meets a requirement that they appear to have for whatever reason. So I am certainly supportive. Councillor DeMora.
Well, just to add some levity to the conversation, I was wondering if we could suspend our current agreement and kind of test drive something and see if it works. And if we don't like it, maybe we could give it back by the end of December, December 31st, have that deadline. That might work, kind of test waters. But, I have to go back to our conversations that we had with Matt. And there was a counselor that kind of leaned in, and he's been observing what we're doing here. And they have an agreement in place for land use planning, and you know, them kind of being our bigger sister or big brother sometimes. You know, they said, you know, you might be looking for a luxury vehicle into, you know, moving forward with this, but luxury vehicles come with costs and maintenance and all that other stuff. So is having the family van that you have already with your relationship with Parks Canada sufficient for what your community needs? So that's been on my mind since the beginning of April, because I never really thought about it, you know, and so I've been kind of contemplating that discussion in my head over and over again. I don't know if we've had that discussion on a broad level, but it's something to consider. We've worked really hard in moving forward on this, and I'm supporting the mayor and council for doing that. But at the same time, you know, when we get there and we see the plan and what might be at stake, you know, there is the opportunity to maybe think, well, maybe what we have is sufficient for what the community actually needs. You know, that comes on to basically more so referring to the tax burden. We're going to increase our operations exponentially with one smooth stroke. So just a thought. Thank you.
Mr. Gibbon.
Your worship, administration is also has a strong desire to be thoughtful and intentional about this process as a part of our due diligence in these negotiations or discussion. We have already started having some conversations with similar municipalities, including Banff. I had a conversation with the CAO of Tofino, and I have another conversation lined up with the CAO of Whistler, understanding similar types of communities that have a significant visitor focus and potentially constrained land base, what the scale and size of their planning and development departments look like. I think it is essential that council and the community understand the order of magnitude about the incremental additional costs the municipality would be accepting, so that you can fairly evaluate those costs against the benefits that it would provide of having that autonomy and ability to influence and control outcomes that you might like to see. So administration is already well aware of this. My intention would be to bring forward some recommendations to council in the context of this ongoing negotiation. Those would likely first be in the camera session, but ultimately council have that information at hand, so they can say, well, this is what it looks like in other similar, because they're not exactly the same, but other similar types of municipalities. Here's the scale. Here's what an implementation period could look like. And I think an essential part of the discussion will have to be a focus around the land rent that the municipality pays. I know Councillor Melnick was recently signing checks, and he signed one that I also signed for $724,000 that we'll pay to the federal government for land rent for the 2022-2023 year. I think council will have to evaluate and potentially negotiate with Parks Canada about how much of that land rent we should be able to retain to be able to cover off the costs of any expanded service. So first, administration will ensure that council has full information, that we essentially know what we're getting ourselves into, and that we don't go signing any blank checks. And secondly, that we will support council in their advocacy with federal officials to ensure that the residents who are paying property taxes that fund land rent are actually receiving services by virtue of the municipal delivery of land use and planning. So it is an important discussion. It is a complex discussion, and administration is ready to support council with all the appropriate information so you can make informed decisions.
Thank you for that, Mr. Gibbon. Councillor DeMora.
You can tell he's a former mayor. Anyway, I really appreciate the detail there. Thank you.
Any other questions, or is the council prepared to make a motion? Councillor Keller-Hempy.
The council formally requests that land use planning and development approval powers be transferred to the municipality of Jasper, and that council authorize the mayor to formalize the request via correspondence to the appropriate Powers Canada representatives and to federal ministers.
Thank you, Councillor Keller-Hempy. Any debate? Just before I call the question, I want to speak to the motion, and I am in full support, and it doesn't mean anything close to a blank check. This opens the door to negotiating a transfer on terms that are acceptable to the community. And as I spoke at the beginning of this session, 21 years ago, the residents of Jasper understood the value, the inherent value of municipal government. I think they continue to recognize the need for local control over a number of issues related to land use planning and development, and are supportive, but not in the sense that it's open season on taxes. But that is all to be negotiated. But we have to get to the point where we have a willing partner, and if they need a formalized acceptance, then that helps us at the table to do those necessary negotiations. So I am fully supportive of the motion. Anyone else? I will then call the question. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. So that takes us to agenda item 7. And at this point, in the absence of any objection from any member of council, I would invite our guest, Mayor Nyland. You've sat through the meat of our meeting today. If you wish to share any observations or comments, we would welcome your observations here today.
First, Mayor, just with the reporting, people actually. Well, thank you for this opportunity. I consider this a real privilege to be able to see local government in action in another country, and a local government that seems to be functioning rather well, just in my view, but for what it's worth. I would like to say I am envious. I love the title, Your Worship. I just think that's kind of neat. I'll see if I can't get that taken care of back when I get home. I doubt it, but I do thank you on that. And again, just the privilege of being here and allowing me to have a chance to say hello and learn a little bit about local government. You're dealing with the same issues in different fashions and forms that we are in North Carolina and United States. One of the things I was talking to Bill about before the meeting is the public transportation is probably something that's pretty important. And I say that as a person that does not have a car here. And we're walking everywhere, and you have a lovely, lovely town, just a gorgeous downtown, and just looking at those mountains and things like that. But we're staying at the very last hotel down at the end. And older folks, not me, but older folks, it would be nice to have a shuttle or something, and might even alleviate some of your traffic in the downtown if that's what you're looking for. And we're making it a more walkable community, because it really is a beautiful place. I love seeing your facilities. I walked around. Your schools are lovely. It's been a real privilege, and I thank you, Mayor, Your Worship, for allowing me to say so, and I thank you all for serving your local citizens is an honor and a privilege, and making a difference in your community is even a greater privilege. And it seems like you guys are really on the right track. And I want to personally invite you to Mount Airy, North Carolina. And when you get there, you come see me, and I'll give you a little card, and you go around town and ask for the mayor's discount. Now, don't get too excited about that. The last person I gave that card to, they started charging them 30% more. But I do appreciate very much the opportunity to say hello and meet some new friends, and do invite you anytime you ever get down close. We'll take care of you and look after you, and would be honored if you visit. And I love the mayor's comment. Hope to see you again next year when we got this taken care of. I might take you up on that.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Agenda item 7, correspondence for information, consideration, or action. There is nothing on the agenda I did share a piece of correspondence received just this morning with council earlier, and I would invite that just to become part of the record at our next regular meeting. That is the response from the Minister of Justice with respect to our request to apply the shadow population modifier to our policing bill, which was rejected. Is there any other new business to raise with council? Councillor DeMora.
Thank you, Your Worship. I appreciate the opportunity. I just wanted to address council candidly. I know that there have been a few sporadic regular meetings that I've missed, and that's just coming up with a new job and maybe potential business opportunity. So going forward, you know, I did what I could to be here today, because the way the MGA works, if you miss certain consecutive meetings within an 8-week period, then you become disqualified as a counselor, so to speak. So I do want to say that if that opportunity, if that situation does come about, I will be asking for a bit of an extension on leave. Right now, it seems like it's working, but this has happened in the past with a few counselors. So I'm hoping that you'll find it in yourselves to grant that to me. Hopefully I won't have to use it, but I just thought I'd get ahead of it, and if the situation does occur, that we're all aware of what potentially could happen. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor DeMora. Is there any other new business? That then takes us to agenda item 9, the motion action list. I'm here for information. I want to extend my appreciation, Mr. Given. I note that the review of the utility rate bylaw is now scheduled. It's on the motion action list. And we updated it last week. It's been added since, but I do appreciate that. And I was just here for information of council and the public, which takes us to agenda item 10, council reports. Reports from councillors to be made at today's meeting. Councillor Mellon.
Thank you, Your Worship. On Thursday of this week, myself, Your Worship, and Councillor Waxer will be attending the Emergency Advisory Committee meeting, the first one, with our Fire Chief and Christine Nadon, our Director of Legislative Service and Protective Services. And then we don't have too much going on for the next 2 weeks.
Thank you, Councillor Melnick. Any other reports? All right, seeing none. Thank you. That takes us to agenda item 11. The only upcoming event is a summer break, so that there will not be a committee meeting next Tuesday morning, nor a regular council meeting on August 2nd, which means we will convene again on August 9th at 9:30 in the morning as Committee of the Whole. Which takes us to the added agenda item 11.1, which is an in-camera session. In a moment, I will ask for a motion that we move in camera. It is somewhat uncertain. My hope and perhaps my expectation is that following our in-camera session, we may come back, reconvene an open session, and potentially approve council's strategic priorities. If that is not the case, then it will be because those strategic priorities have been referred to another Committee of the Whole meeting. But for those who are interested, I'm not quite sure administratively how we can let people know when we come back into open session. But if there is a way for those interested to stand by, I just wonder how we alert them if we do have a decision to be made when we reconvene in open session.
Your Worship, administration doesn't have the ability to proactively reach out, sort of contact people. We don't necessarily know who might be signing in to our Zoom. And so we would have to turn off the Zoom broadcast, if you will. What might work is if council wanted to identify the specific time that you wish to reconvene, or that you would imagine you might reconvene. And then that way, people who are watching right now would know when they should expect to tune back in. And so if you expect that your conversation might take 10 minutes or 15 minutes, but just setting that specific time, I think would allow anybody that was participating and watching right now to know when they might come back in, and administration would, in essence, turn on the cameras at that designated time, or if council needed to extend the time, we could just give notice to people at that time. But I think defining a time when you would expect to end might be the most productive way to let people that are watching know when they might expect to come back out of the camera.
Thank you, Mr. Given. Councillor DeMota.
Well, I'm not sure how long it takes to post the meetings afterward, but you know, we could just invite people to go and watch the end of the recording after, and then they're not held hostage. If there are anyone that needs to come back, I would say go enjoy the summer while we have it.
I wonder whether it's possible to leave the cameras live. We could reconvene in the ante room for discussions, and when we reappear on the screen, people, if they're watching, will know. Alternatively, if we are going to not adjourn but recess for in-camera discussions for a set time, I would rather be generous with the allotment, because I don't know where the discussion is going to go. So I would suggest maybe we could be back at 3:15, but either of those options. But we should let people know now before we move in camera. Suggestions? 3:15. All right, could I have a motion, please, then, that we move in camera at 2:33 p.m. with an intention to resume the open session at 3:15. So for those members of the public who are interested in seeing our decision making unfold, they can tune back in at 3:45, and we will at that time at least know, 3:15, and we will then at least know where we stand in terms of decision making for today. Councillor Hall? All right. I have a motion that we move in camera at 2:33 p.m. subject to returning at 3:15 p.m. All those in favor? There are none opposed. Thank you. We shall move in. Thank you. We are back. May I have a motion, please, to revert to open session? Councillor DeMota, moving that we return to open session at 3:15 p.m. 3:17 p.m. Pardon me. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. We are back in open session 2 minutes later than anticipated, but with, I believe, some resolution coming from our in-camera discussions concerning strategic priorities. So, Mr. Given, can you recount what you heard in the last half hour or so?
Absolutely, Your Worship. Important that council has confidence that administration heard the discussion. And so we captured 3 different relatively minor amendments to the plan. The first is on page 27 in the message from the mayor, a change in the description of the number of individual strategic actions. The plan now has 31. I think a previous edition had 30. And so that changed from the number 30 to 31 in the message from the mayor. On page 30 in community health, there's an extraneous "we" in the last bullet point. The preface to the bullet points, the strategic priorities, contains a "we," and then that very last "we" needs to be deleted. And then on page 32, some additional context added to the first bullet point to add on to the end of that first bullet point, all of whom share a commitment to best serve our community. So those three changes, the first in the message to the mayor, the removal of that extra "we" in community health, and the additional context in relationships, first bullet point, with the changes, amendments that administration heard that council wished to have.
Thank you, Mr. Given. With that, and having had numerous discussions over the course of now a few months on this particular topic of our strategic priorities, is there a councillor prepared to make a motion that council adopt the 2022-2026 strategic priorities as amended? Councillor Hall? Thank you for that. It's appropriate that councillors speak to this motion, not necessarily to debate, but Councillor Demota.
No, I just want to say that we don't always agree unanimously, and you know, sometimes there might be that perception in the community, because especially when we go through our committee the whole meetings, and that's where we hash things out. What I'm really grateful for is that when we don't see eye to eye on items, that we work collectively. We've done a really good job to come to some resolutions on a lot of things. And I think from all the work that we've done here together and with administration, that we've come up with a really good product. And I'm quite impressed and happy with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Demota. Others? Councillor Melnick?
Thank you, Your Worship. I also just would like to express appreciation to administration with some of the changes prior to this iteration, from the previous one to this one, and making some of the changes for clarity. And I think reading the document in its entirety and embracing it, council and administration and the community will have a clear direction for the next number of years.
Thank you, Councillor Melnick. Councillor Keller-Hranty?
I just want to thank administration and Mayor Ireland and a fellow council member. I missed some of the strategic planning sessions wordsmith, and I'm really happy with the document, and I think it's going to be a great 4 years forward. I think, you know, we have a lot of initiatives ahead of us, and working with administration, I'm hoping that at the end of this 4 years that we'll see some of these completed. I just want to thank everybody.
Thank you, Councillor Keller-Hranty. Councillor Waxer, you're good?
I think everyone said everything I would have said. Thank you.
And I will concur with you that it has all been said. It's been a tremendous amount of work. I congratulate council, and I thank Mr. Given and his staff for helping us get to this point. And I think it's fair to acknowledge as well the assistance of Tracy Lawrenson when we began this endeavor back in early April. I think that really helped us get on a path forward that led us to today. It is a significant milestone that we're achieving, having a motion before us to confirm our strategic priorities for the rest of this term and to help guide the next council. So it is significant. I'm really happy with the document and very happy to vote in support of the motion. Councillor Hall, you can close debate.
Thank you, Mayor Ireland. I too am very excited for this plan in front of us. This is my first strategic plan, and maybe not my last, but the next 3.5 years are going to be really great. And thank you, my council colleagues and Mayor Ireland, for helping me through this process. And yeah, let's get at it.
All right. Well, I will then call the question. All those in favor? That is unanimous. There are none opposed. That is carried. So thank you all. And I think then that concludes all of our agenda items for today. So I would welcome a motion to adjourn. Councillor Waxer, the one who wants to get out of town. All those in favor? There are none opposed. We are adjourned. Thank you all, and thank you for your patience to those members of the public or staff who stayed online waiting for us to return from our in-camera discussion. I'm happy to see that we concluded as much business today as we did. Thank you all, and for councillors and for staff, enjoy the next few Tuesdays with time to yourselves, however you might spend that, enjoying Jasper's summer weather, hopefully. Thank you all, and we will see the community again August 9th at 9:30 in the morning for a committee of the whole meeting.
Sad lot if you're out there. Thanks for watching.